A report by Pnet has revealed that the local job market has dropped. The negative 3% recorded represents a significant decrease in hiring activity in September. Pnet's Paul Byrne speaks to us about this. Thank you so much for your time, Paul. Let's first unpack the dwindle that we are seeing in hiring activity. What is it attributed to?
Good morning, Jimmy-san. Thank you very much for your interest in our data. We're seeing the softening in the hiring activity through the third quarter of this year. That is despite the resilient performance we've had in the first 6 months up until the end of June this year. So the last time we spoke, I was quite buoyed by the fact that we'd actually managed to keep a really stable hiring activity market here in South Africa. And that was despite all the economic headwinds. However, business challenges seem to have caught up with us, and as you've reported, we are seeing that we are 3% down quarter on quarter between quarter 2 and quarter 3 of this year. We're also 3% down in the same period of last year. Now, it's not sounding like a massive number. What is a flag for us right now is that what we have seen is that the difference between August and September of this year has been a 13% dip in the hiring activity. So it's not quite an alarm bell yet, but it's definitely a flag that we need to be watching quite carefully as we move into the last 2 months of this year.
And comparing the third quarter of this year to that of last year with regards to the information gathered for this report, what trend is emerging then of the current dynamics in South Africa's labour landscape, seeing that it repeats itself?
Interestingly, the third quarter of last year actually was a really buoyant quarter. We had some of the best hiring activity we had seen in recent times across that quarter. So that 3% drop off that is not significant, and it's got to be read in the context of what those numbers that I'm providing have to be read in that particular context. But again, it is this August to September drop off that is the flag for us right now. Now that has been driven specifically by a drop in admin, office and support type roles. That's the area that we're watching most carefully at the moment.
Would you say it was expected, Paul, given that the South African business climate is not as conducive when it comes to the headwinds that are faced?
Well, Tumi-san, I have been really positive about what's been happening across this year and specifically positive within that hiring activity that we've been talking about. So despite all of these headwinds that we've faced, where there's been load shedding, high interest rates, dwindling business confidence, this year, month on month, up until the end of June, we've seen this consistent growth. And it's been small growth. It's been 2-3% per month. But every month, there's been this uptick in hiring activity. So this is the first time, the first sort of challenge we picked up was we saw that there was a slight drop-off in July. We recovered that in August. So 6% drop in July, 6% increase in August again. So that sort of leveled us out in terms of where we were for the year. And then there's big drop-off of 13% now in September. So it is, that's the worry, and it is that particular month, and this month that we're looking at. And I think there's just so much more that's come to play now. And you're speaking, Gert, in the previous section that you were talking about the impact of the war in Gaza and Israel. And I think what we're seeing is that there's gains of this reduction in business confidence, specifically as people are saying, well, this is just another challenge that we're going to face. What are the future prospects in terms of that opportunity to continue to grow business? And I think a lot of employers are thinking, do we actually go for it now and continue the growth trajectory that we've been on, or do we actually rein things in a little bit and just slow down to wait to see what actually happens, not only through the development of the war, but also what happens with sort of the election season that we're coming into into next year.
Having said that, what's the near-term outlook as we're about to wrap up the year of 2023? We know this particular season is one of casual job opportunities within the likes of the retail space over the festive season. Is that likely to be positive?
I think it's likely to be positive. We've seen some good hiring trends specifically within that retail space. There's a lot of seasonality that comes into play here, although we do take that into account in terms of the tracking of our numbers. But specifically, seasonality in that retail space, as we see a lot of the online platforms globally and our national platforms here in South Africa gearing up towards Black Friday and obviously the Christmas season, and all the additional support that they need to bring into cope with that extra capacity. That's not to mention, obviously, the fact that stores will be looking for extra feet on the ground now to support the customers that are going to be coming through in the traffic in terms of buying for this particular season. So, yes, I expect that we will continue to see that. There is, I think, that sense of less disposable income in the market at the moment as our cost of living has gone up so significantly during the course of the year. So there will be that need to bring in the staff, both to support the online businesses as well as the traditional bricks and mortar businesses. However, I do think spending will be less. So we're going to see the impact of that during the first course of next year.
Paul, there's also some positive developments on the side of the female representation that we are seeing in the job market. Tell us about what the report found.
Absolutely. Yet there's a lot of research that we've actually done, and I won't necessarily get into it or have the opportunity to get into all the detail right now, but specifically looking at our own data, what is particularly positive is that we're seeing that young women, and by that I'm defining it as women that are under the age of 35, seem to be so much more ambitious in terms of their career development at the moment. Our data is showing that that cohort of women, in other words, under age of 35, are more qualified than their older peers. And specifically, that difference is that we're seeing that women under 35, 23% of them have tertiary qualifications, versus just 20% of women beyond the age of 35. More than that, we are also seeing that there are a lot more applications happening via our platforms from women compared to men. So to put that in numbers, 51% of all job applications done via the Pnet platform over the last 12 months were done by women, compared to just 39% done by men. And the balance of the 10%, we don't know. That's unknown. But, we're starting to see that there are a lot more women also starting to participate in traditionally male sort of based careers. And specifically, what we're also seeing is that those women going into those careers seem to be, again, within that cohort of under 35, more qualified than their older peers. And just to give you a couple of examples, within civil and structural engineering, we're finding that the younger cohort of women, 13% of them have tertiary qualifications now, versus just 9% of the older cohort. When we're looking at plant production and control, a very male-dominated type environment again, we're seeing that women older than 35, about 15% of them have tertiary qualifications, but those that are younger than 35, 20% of them have qualifications. So you can see the trend that's actually moving in the right direction for women, making sure that they're getting more qualified, applying for more jobs, and getting themselves into the workforce. And where we're seeing the impact of that is the proportion of females that are going into these male-dominated type professions is also increasing. So again, just to give you a sort of indication of what's happened over the last 5 years, if we compare data from before 2018 to where we are now, careers like mining inspectors, pre-2018, just 6% of women held tertiary, were participating in that particular industry. That's grown to 13%. Another example, building inspectors, that's grown from 22% participation from women to 34%. And the big one at the moment in terms of where we do see a big skill shortage within South Africa around the IT environment is your IT project administration and project management type skills. 30% participation in women 5 years ago, taking on that particular career, and that's grown to 39%. So I think there's some really positive data coming out of this. We're seeing that women are that much more ambitious, as I said, and a large part of that seems to be driven by the opportunity for more flexibility in the workplace. And I think that's a really important message for employers that are looking to, firstly, find skills, which we know are becoming more and more hard to find. And secondly, making sure that we are actually empowering women to get back into the workplace and giving them the flexibility that they need to manage an already very busy life.
That latter part's absolutely encouraging. Thank you for your insights as always. Paul Byrne is with Pnet today talking to us about the job trends for the third quarter of this year. That is a report that they compile.